Mode.
Hello and welcome everyone. We'd like to get started with today's presentation of the Hospital Inspector Certification Exam Preparation webinar. You are here for the second part of the electrical portion. This is the second part in the electrical for the Hospital Inspector Certification Exam Preparation webinar series. For your use, if you haven't accessed them already, we've uploaded the handouts for today's presentation. We've also uploaded some practice electrical plans and the tips from the experts, a guide for working on projects under OSHPD jurisdiction. You are here for about a 30-minute presentation, which will be in an open forum discussion format. So we will go ahead and ask you to raise your hand if you have a question, you want to have, or if you have a comment. So go ahead and click the little hand icon next to your name. And once we see that, we'll go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, we'll go ahead and have a discussion. Again, we want to encourage discussion. This is an open mic format. If you've presented or if you've been present on the previous presentations, you'll find that these discussions are very useful and provide some very helpful information as you can apply out in the field. So if you don't get your question answered, and if you have questions about a specific project, go ahead and reach out to us by emailing us at oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. Again, that's oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. If you experience transmission difficulties, we'll go ahead and log off and sign back in, and we will ask you to do the same. So if you have audio or visual issues, go ahead and log off. We'll ask you to log back in, and we can continue with our presentation that way. So for today, we have, for a presenter, we have Mr. Jamie Schnick, Senior Electrical Engineer, and we also have Bill Gow, Senior Electrical Engineer as well, and Bill will go ahead and help answer questions in the background in the go-to question box. So if you have a question and you don't want to raise your hand, feel free to type your question into the go-to question box, and we will go ahead and answer those questions there as well. We also have the ISU team. If you have answering questions, if you have questions about the exam, we'll go ahead and type your question into that question box or raise your hand as well. So Jamie, Bill, if you're there, the presentation's all yours.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Caesar. I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at the homework. We'll go ahead and review each of those questions, and then I'll show you the process of how to get the answer. And if you have any questions afterwards, just bring them up. So number one, the natural gas range convection blower is served by which electrical panel and circuit? And I'll just start off by saying, we remember there was a enlarged kitchen plan, and so that's probably where we want to start. On the homework number two question, the factory wired controller for RTU, rooftop unit 5, is connected to what circuit? Again, we're probably going to look at the roof plan for that one. So go ahead, Caesar. Please advance. There's the answers quickly, but let's work through them. If we can go to the next one, we'll show how we got those answers. You can go ahead and advance, please. Okay, so like I said, the gas range convection blower is served by which circuit? We see in the enlarged kitchen plan on sheet E6.01, I'm sorry, if you could back up a minute to the previous slide, Caesar.
Okay. There seems to be a slight delay, so just bear with me.
Yeah, apologize. As I said, we looked at that enlarged kitchen plan, and then right on the plan, it highlighted in blue, we see the natural gas convection overblower motor that's pointing to the dedicated receptacle. And we see that dedicated receptacle is in fact circuited to LN2B 10. Now, as an electrical engineer myself, a mathematician, I like to check my work, and you could easily do that by going to the panel board LN2B210. And if you do look at that, you will see on that panel schedule, it calls out this natural gas convection overblower motor. So if anybody has any questions or would like to discuss this question, we can do that now before we move on to the second. I'll give you a few minutes. If I don't hear anything, then we'll just go ahead and move to the second question.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. And it looks like we have a hand raised from Waleed. I see your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Waleed.
Yeah, hi, how are you? Hello?
Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
hi.
go ahead. We can hear you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just by mistakenly I hit the, it's okay, everything's fine. So I don't have a question.
That's quite all right. Thank you. Thank you for,
Thank you. Thank you.
so we'll go ahead and mute you. And I don't see any other hands, Jamie. So if you'd like, we can continue with the presentation.
Yes, go ahead and please advance the slide.
Okay, we should be looking at the equipment legend now.
It's a little delay for me, so let me give it a second. There it is. Okay. So the next question was circuiting for the RTU5 controllers. And as we recall, there is a Division 15 mechanical equipment connection schedule. And in that equipment connection schedule, if we look at it, it identifies that RTU5 has a supply fan, a return fan, and over under the remarks, it says the control panel, VFD, and lights are furnished with the unit. So that that indicates that there's going to be a 480 volt feed to the fan, and then there'll be a step down transformer that will then also feed the lights in the controller. So let's go ahead and advance to the slide. We'll take a look at the roof plan next, I think.
Okay, should be looking at the next slide here.
Yeah, I stalled for a minute because it is a delay on my side. Still showing the legend on my screen. There it is. Okay, so now we see in the roof plan for RTU5, there are the two circuit connections. And if we look and see in the yellow area over here, they are circuited to DHEQB17 and DHEQB18. So the correct answer, as we understand it, would be A, this, which lists those two circuits. I do see a hand, so
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I'll go ahead and look through the list of names real quick to see if we can call on you. Bradley, I see you have a question, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Bradley.
Yeah, hi. I had a feeling I was going to get this one wrong, and it's one of those. It's how the question's written, right? So when you go to the mechanical plans and you look at the notes on sheet, let me see here. It's sheet M0.02, and you look at that. You look at the keynotes. So there's a keynote 22, and then there's also a keynote 21. Now, keynote 21 is recessed condition VFD cabinet, but note 22 is recessed condition control cabinet. So I was looking at the circuitry to the question, the controller. So that's just one of those things. It's how it's written that it kind of leads you to a different answer. So on the
Sure.
quiz. On the exam, how are we to, do we challenge it was confusing.
Well, that's a good question. So, what was your answer then?
It was D.
It was D.
Because when you look at that circuit up there, that panel in the upper left-hand corner, when you look at the mechanical, in the upper left-hand corner is note 22 on the AHU itself. Now, notes 21 are the ones over on the east side. So that would take you to circuit one, the QB 1-7. So it's just, I was looking at the air handler itself and not, I looked at this drawing, but I had to reference back to the air handler because the question's asking for the controller, not the VFDs.
Right. Yeah. If we back up one slide, Caesar, on the way I interpreted it is that there's two controllers. And the reason I came to that understanding is because of the mechanical equipment schedule, which indicated that the feed to the on that remark on the left, it's control panel VFD and furnished with unit. So you're right. It doesn't necessarily say how their circuit says it's furnished with the unit. So I don't know. You're asking when you're taking the test. Do I need to explain each answer? And I would think not. I would think that after the test is done, you might have a case to talk through this one with somebody. I guess is the way I would suspect, because but I'll let Joe or someone else jump in about the logistics of that. I understand what you're saying, and it is smart to look at the mechanical drawings to see how their wiring is shown. But it appears that from what I saw on this, that it would be 7 and 8.
This is Monica. Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so is different drawings to see. So there is the drawing where there is the roof plan, and on the roof plan, and I don't remember if it was the prior slide or the second or the following slide, it shows that the RTU5 has 2 circuits. And here, the question actually says which is the connection to which circuit. It doesn't ask if it is a supply or return. And so by looking the schedule as well, and then looking the circuit, the panel board, there shows that the RTU5 has 2 circuit information, and that is the 7 and the 8. So if there is, so there are 2 locations where are confirming is 7 and 8. One is the floor plan, and one is the panel.
Yeah. So A was my original answer, but then when I looked at the RTU3 on the mechanical set, that's how it drew me back to D, because how the question was written. It wasn't discussing the VFDs. It was talking about the controller, which is note 22 on that air handler. So that's why I only went to that one circuit.
Caesar, do you think you could call up that drawing?
The mechanical?
Yeah, I mean, we could look at that together.
Yeah, it's M0.02, and it's that it's right in the middle of the upper right hand. It's right in the middle of the page on the right hand side.
Sure, let me see if I can go ahead and access that.
Trying to go as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we can do.
M0?
M002.
Okay.
Now, Jamie, what do you see on the screen? Can you tell me that?
I see the lead sheet for the surgical drawings.
It's page 14, Caesar.
Okay. Bear with me. Moving right along.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I see you're flipping through now.
And anyway, when there is this type of double thought, let's say, so first you were thinking is the answer A, but then you were looking also on the mechanical drawings and you see that for you the answer is D. We said on the part 1 and we said also on the other webinars, and we will go through on March 30th for the exactly the process, how it will be for the exam, that on the Scantron will be a column where you can challenge the answer. So what does it mean? It means that you can write, if you are in conflict and you are strong on your, I don't want to say argue, but on your response, just write on the challenge that on that question, for example, if it's this case, you say, okay, automatically I would think that is A because I see this drawing, but then by looking the mechanical drawing, that is the answer that I truly believe. And then you need to be sure that on the Scantron, you will write your answer, you will fill up the bubble for whatever answer is. And because you have the answer bubble and you have also your challenge, that challenge will be considered. Okay?
Yeah, it's how it was written. So
Right, right.
And say, well, this question's written this way, and it points you to the controller and not necessarily the two VFD cabinets for the fans.
Right. And you have to consider also there are different people who provide these type of questions. And so it can be that who provided the question is just focusing on the electrical portion without considering, for example, the other discipline. And so this is why the challenge in this case is recommended.
Yeah, so let's hear from some other people who have their hand raised. So Bradley, thank you for that comment. And we're going to go ahead and call on Brian. Brian, if you're still there, I want to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, Bradley's perspective actually was very good too, because I did answer it right, but when I was reviewing it, there's also an additional light circuit to the unit, a little 120 volt circuit. So I did not assume, that there was some sort of control transformer that was in place. So I obviously kind of looked at what made the most sense from an answer perspective on what's left, but it was not an obvious decision. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. And then the second question that I had is, like to Bradley's point, there was technically two right answers. The return fan cabinet on the rooftop air handler unit schedule shows that's where the control connection is. So he picked a right answer. How would he know to challenge something that appears to be right?
So when the inspection services unit reviews the answers that are provided and the challenges as well, that gives us an opportunity to look at it from possibly a different lens that maybe you as a test taker are taking the exam and are looking at the question maybe different. And as you said, there might be, in a rare case, two possible answers. So that challenge would help us kind of take a step back and look at it from that point of view, and evaluate what you're thinking.
But I think if I was in Bradley's shoes, you know, in that 2-minute window of taking that one question, I would have just picked what was the correct answer in his, you know, mind, and I wouldn't have explained it and challenged it, right? Or do we get the results back later and get the opportunity to challenge answers?
You get the results. It's a pass, no pass, but you get the results. If you were to challenge a question, you would get the results back in writing. So that would allow you to help your score, and the results would, you know, hopefully be able to help you, you know, get a passing score. So while taking the test, it would be beneficial to go ahead and select the best answer. And if the answer is not there, challenge the question, and hopefully that challenge is going to, you know, allow you to get a point for that question, which would in turn allow you to pass.
So Caesar, could you zoom in on this a little bit? Brian, I did also look at that 120 volt circuit that went to the lights, and I contemplated that too. And then that's when I went back to the equipment schedule to study that. But you're right, it doesn't say necessarily that it's derived from the 480 circuit. But if you zoom in on the notes in the middle and the right hand, yeah, that would help. Let's see. So 22.
So while we're doing that, I'd like to go ahead and call on Glenn. We have a couple more hands up, so if that's okay with you, Jamie, I'd like to call on others. Brian, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
So Glenn, I see you have your hands up. I went ahead and unmuted you, Glenn.
Okay, yeah, so along the same lines as that is I just kind of used the process of elimination to derive at the right answer. I went and looked at the other panel schedule that noted that it was a lighting circuit, and so I basically just by process of elimination, that's how I ended up at the correct answer. That made the most sense by eliminating the light circuit out of there, because on the roof drawing, it only showed the 3 different circuits.
Right. Same thing I did. I think that makes sense. It's a big process.
This is James Pond. I'm a structural engineer, and I did review these questions many times because it is a little bit tricky, like others say. However, I don't think there's an issue with the question itself, because it's a little tricky that you got to go to the mechanical drawing to find out, you know, the actual answer. I think that's the I think if it's a core issue, that's the issue for this question, right? But the question itself, I don't think is incorrect for it to be challenged to arrive the other answer, which is the incorrect answer. I believe that's the key here. But Jamie, review the drawing, and then we got Jamie and Bill here, so they are the technical electrical engineer that can shine some light on this question.
Great. So thank you for that. Thank you for raising your hand. Habat, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Habat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and you still there, Habat? All right, moving on. So Joel, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Joel. Can you unmute yourself, please? Hello, Joel, if you're there, if you go ahead and speak into the microphone, please. Okay, and I believe we have one more hand raised. Alexander, I believe I saw your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was just wondering, is there a limit to how many questions we can challenge? Because if we have, multiple questions that are really ambiguous, like the one that just mentioned, can I just go ahead and challenge basically every single question? put my answer in, and if my answer is wrong, I have a challenge there to kind of buffer.
There's no limit to the amount of questions you can challenge, but also to be clear, you can challenge, but you also have to provide what you believe is a correct answer, right? So,
Right.
Yeah. So if the answer isn't there, challenge it, explain why you're challenging it, and then provide what you believe is the correct answer for that.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Alexander. Moving on, Hebat, I see you have your hand raised again, so I'm going to take two more questions, then we'll move on to the next example. Hebat?
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, great. See, I'm electrical and mechanical engineer too. So I think the answer was correctly given. A was the right answer. And my reason is, of course, the mechanical contractor can specify that the rooftop unit should have one source of connection for several reasons. One is the manufacturer want to wire it that way, and they want to have both supply and return at the same unit to be able to interlock them correctly and all of that. However, on this particular project, I think if you all go to sheet E9-02, you will see the panel schedule. And under the panel schedule, you will see circuit number 7 is for the supply, and circuit number 8 is for the return. So the engineer basically designed to have two different circuits coming from the electrical panel DHE081, 0B1. And the point that the question was raised, I think we need to look at the electrical drawing at that time and not try to confuse ourselves as a mechanical. Because the question is an electrical question, not a mechanical question. So my opinion is that the right answer was A, because the panel which is on sheet E9, that's 02, specifically identified the two circuits 7 and 8 for the RTU number 5 supply and RTU number 5 return.
Yeah. So thank you for that input. Jamie, anything else to add to what Hebat had said?
No, I hope it helps.
Okay.
Hope it's good discussion, no doubt.
And Joel, I see you have your hand up, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. This will be the last question for this example. We'd like to move on to the next. So Joel, I unmuted you. If you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Right on. I had difficulty with this question simply because I assumed the unit only had one controller. However, if you go to the drawing of the rooftop unit, I don't know if you can go back to the drawing of the rooftop unit, but they show the electrical going to two locations that are not the light, and there's a symbol at those locations. It's like a little square that's split into 4 sections. And if you go back to the symbol schedule, you'll see that symbol actually stands for a controller. So it was at that point that I realized the unit had 2 controllers, and that really clarified to me that the answer was A.
Nice.
Bingo.
That really just cleared everything up for me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, that's great input, Joel. Thank you so much. So, Jamie, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. If you'd like to go ahead and continue with the presentation, please.
Sure. I think that might be the last homework assignment, but go ahead. I'm still seeing the panel schedule, so I think there's still a delay for me.
Yeah, there's we should be on the question that reads, the factory wired controller for RTU5 is connected to what circuit?
Oh, okay. So this is the same one that we just worked through. This is the
Perfect.
one that is A. So we can move on. Yeah.
All right. So I believe that's it. Monica, is that correct? That's it for this slideshow?
That's correct.
Great. So want to go ahead and encourage you to raise your hand since we are at the end of the presentation. Alexander, I do see you have your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you'd like to unmute yourself, Alexander.
Yeah, so some of the specifications say that we'll get an answer 30 days after, but is it true that we'll get pass or fail day of the test right there?
Pass or fail for the actual exam that day, that is not true.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because and that leads to my second question, which is, if we challenge whatever questions, who's the governing authority that says yay or nay to our challenged questions? If it's approved, then yes, you get a point for the question, you're good, or no.
The governing authority for that would be the Inspection Services Unit. We will look at your challenge. We will evaluate your challenge and look at it from different points of view if that's your take on the actual question, and do the research and then contact you with the result.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alexander. Denny, I see you have your hands up. I'd like to go ahead and call on you if you like to unmute yourself, Denny.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, we can hear you. Go ahead.
So I think we've covered all the bases of plans, and then next week's fire life safety. But is civil on the plan, Seth?
Yes, we just responded to that question. So civil drawing may be included in the exam plain reading portion, and some of the questions could be from those civil drawings.
Okay.
However, we do not have a section for civil, if that's your question.
Right, I just want to be prepared for it. So I guess fire alarm and fire sprinkler will be covered under fire life safety, or is it separate?
Yeah, that will be part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Denny. I'm going to go ahead and look through the list of names to see if anyone else has their hand raised. Looking for more conversation or discussion on the examples that we just went through, or the electrical portion of the exams as well. If I don't see any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and provide the closing remarks. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the list of names one more time, list of attendees, to see if anyone else has their hand raised. And it seems like there is no more hands raised. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you for sticking with us.
See Mike has a raised hand.
Oh, Mike, and I also see Brian just raised his hand too. So let me get to Mike real quick. Mike, I see your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Mike.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, in response to the question that was brought up earlier, so when I forget if it was last week or the week before, but it was brought up that the questions would be asked in just depending on the discipline, like mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So are you guys going to ask questions that, like in this case, it was an electrical question, but the answer might have us have to go through the mechanical set? Are there any types of questions that would have us have to follow that, or will it be specific to, if it's in the electrical part, the answer will only be on the electrical set of questions?
To answer your question, there's the exam is broken up into different disciplines, different sections, if you will, electrical, mechanical, plumbing. It is not the intention of the Inspection Services Unit to provide tricky questions or to have you bounce around from section to section or discipline to discipline or book to book, if you will. If if you do encounter a question like that, that wasn't the intent, but ideally, the way that we've laid out the exam is discipline per discipline as far as the exam goes.
And let me interject on Mike's question. It all depends on how the set of drawings is developed, right? So, for example, if we ask you an anchorage question, what comes to your mind is anchorage is structure, right? However, if you review the structural drawings and you cannot find the anchorage of that RTU, what's the next thing that comes to your mind is RTU is a mechanical unit, right? So that's why you would have to go to the mechanical units, mechanical drawings, look at the equipment schedule, and perhaps it will lead you to that detail that show you the anchorage for that mechanical unit. So, it all depends on how the question for the plain reading is developed, right? And at times you will require to flip through different discipline to find the answer for that specific discipline. So let's say for this, example, you might think it's a structural question, but the answer is actually in another discipline story.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mike. We do see one more hand up. So let me get to you. Let's see here. Brian, you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Brian.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Quick question. So if I challenge a question and my challenge is successful, say it's, not the same answer that you have listed as the answer for that question, does that then become an acceptable answer for everyone who picked it, or do you have to have a challenge on your exam?
Let me answer this.
Okay.
So, say that again.
Let me say this first, and then Monica, Caesar, you can chime in. Okay. What we have done is, since none of us is a psychometrist who actually is a degree that you get for PhD, to know and understand how people think, to drive the question statement, at times it might be so-called misleading, right? So if that's actually determined to be the case and the answer could be a different answer, what we have done is then we will discard that question for everybody that took that exam. So it's not for just the individual who challenged that specific question. However, just to let you know that ICU, we do have, internal quality control. Each question's been reviewed by many people. We have the source of the key and how the key is being developed. Let's say if this question, the answer is A, where the answer A leaf on, is it a code question? And if it's a code question, the section of that answer will be provided in our master key, and then if it's a plain reading, it will be guiding the source from, let's say, from plain, from sheet such to detail such and such. So all that is in our master key.
All right, thank you.
Great, thanks, Brian. I'm going to go ahead and look through the list of names one more time. Looking for hands raised. Again, want to remind you that if you didn't get a chance to ask a question, and if you think of a question later, you can go ahead and send it over to oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. And I don't see any more hands raised in the list of names. I'm going to go ahead and check to see if we have any additional questions that have been typed into the GoTool question box, and I don't see any additional questions. So I'm going to go ahead and want to thank you for sticking with us to the end of this presentation. Again, if you have any specific questions about this presentation or a specific question about a project you're working on, feel free to reach out and contact us at oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. And go ahead and want to encourage you to download the presentation handouts that are in PDF format under the handout section of the go-to toolbox as well. So for up and coming presentations, we do have Fire and Life Safety Part 1 and Part 2 on March 23rd and March 25th. And we will be going over the exam itself, answering questions such as, how to challenge a question, what's the exam format, et cetera, on March 30th, 2021. Again, that's March 30th. So go to our webpage if you haven't done so already and register for that if that so interests you. Our webpage is at oshpd.ca.gov, and you can find us under the Building Safety and Finance. Look for forms, training, and resources if you're looking for webinars, and scroll all the way down to the Inspection Services unit, where you'll find the Hospital Inspector Certification Exam Preparation and Plan Reading section of the webpage for those webinars coming up. So again, this concludes our presentation for today. We want to thank you for your interest in becoming a certified inspector of record with the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. So until next time, stay healthy and stay safe. Yes.
Cesar, no, I need to add one thing. So sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I was waiting till the end. For the people that that are emailing us, and there are many, that they are emailing us for the electrical part 1 that for whatever reason you could not download because maybe from the cellular phone or whatever, we are going to upload this electrical part 1 next for the next webinar, which will be the March 23rd. So will be for the fire life safety, but there is limited quantity space for the upload, and we will try to upload as well the electrical part 1. So stay tuned on that as well. Thank you.
Great. That's perfect. So again, if you haven't had a chance to download those handouts, feel free to log in to that March 30th presentation where, as Monica pointed out, we'll go ahead and have some more handouts for you for your use. So Jamie, want to thank you. Bill, thank you for being here. Everyone else on the ISU team want to thank you for participating. James, thank you so much. And want to be able to let you know that we hope to see you on March 30th, or at least hear from you and see your name on that list of people who are attending the webinar. So until next time, we'll take care, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.